Hey, welcome to our channel. In this video, we are going to go on one of the most scenic drives in the entire country, and I'm talking about the Zion Mount Carmel Road, which you can see behind me here. There's a road going through this incredible Red Rock Canyon. This road goes from Zion National Park out to Mount Carmel Junction, which is why it's called the Zion Mount Carmel Road. We're going to ascend 800 feet up 6 switchbacks. We're going to go through a 1 mile long tunnel. We're gonna wind through some incredible red rock scenery. We're gonna end up at the belly of the dragon. So if that sounds interesting, then stay tuned. My name's Matt with We're in the Rockies, and on this channel we just try to highlight some of the amazing places and stories from the American West. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. Okay, first a little background. Zion National Park was created in 1919, but at the time, Zion Canyon was a one-way in, one-way out road. There was no way to get from the lower canyon floor to the upper part above the canyon. So what led to the creation of this incredible Zion Mount Carmel Highway? Well, there were 4 things. Number 1, the National Park Service was new and they were looking to promote their national parks. The National Park Service was created in 1916 and they really felt they had a mission to get people to the national parks, or they would fail as an agency and they would lose their government funding. So they worked together heavily with the railroads to promote the national parks and get visitors to them. Number 2, Bryce Canyon is on the east side of Zion National Park, and there was no direct route to get to Bryce Canyon National Park. And it was actually created as a national monument in 1923. And the deal was at that time, they said, hey, we need to turn this into a national park, but these 2 parks are too far away. We need to build a more direct route. So the idea was started to build a road to get out of Zion Canyon so people could get to Bryce Canyon easier and they could promote these national parks and get more visitors to them. Number 3, this was done during a period of great prosperity, something called the Roaring 20s in American history. So during the 1920s, America was in pretty good shape, was doing really well after World War I, and was economically able to handle a project like this. Number 4, a great amount of ingenuity. They spent 4 years surveying the land to try to figure out where they could build a road out of Zion Canyon. They debated between 2 places. They settled on this particular spot because a local rancher, local farmer guy, kind of knew the lay of the land and he figured there was a way out of the canyon. This is called Pine Creek Canyon actually, where they built this road. And he figured, hey, there's kind of a way you could get up through here. And so with his help and with some marvelous engineers, they've settled on the Zion Mount Carmel Highway leading out of Pine Creek Canyon. So it took them 4 years just to survey the thing. Then it took them 3 years to build the highway. Okay, how do you get there? First of all, you enter the park. You enter the park in Springdale at the ranger station there, and you simply just stay on the road. That road leads around. It'll drive you right past Zion Scenic Drive, which is the road where you have to ride a shuttle into. But you'll drive past that road, you just keep going straight, and it'll lead you right into the switchbacks. Right before you get to the switchbacks, you're gonna cross over Pine Creek Bridge, which actually was the very last piece that was finished, the last piece of the puzzle. Now the bridge had been finished, but the decorative outside was done by an artisan who really was quite a perfectionist, and they had taken stone from different parts of the canyon to make this look as much a natural part of the environment as possible. The road was built in 4 stages, and I'll tell you a little bit about each one as we go on our drive. The first stage are the switchbacks. There are 6 switchbacks that lead you up the hill here. This was actually the most expensive part of the project. There were hundreds of workers working on this around the clock, night and day, through the hot summers and the cold winters. They became kind of fond of these switchbacks, and so they gave them names such as Carl's Bend, which was named after a construction supervisor, Skinny Bend, Nevada Switchback, which was named after the construction company which was in charge of the entire project. And finally, Sandwich Rock, named because the rock looks like a sandwich. And this is the only one that I'm aware of that has kind of retained its name to today. People still call this Sandwich Rock Switchback. One thing they struggled with throughout the construction process was rock slides. This is softer rock after all. And so there were plenty of rock slides that they had to deal with that would come down and kind of ruin the switchbacks. They had to build a bunch of retaining walls throughout the process. One of the members of the crew was killed during one of these rock slides as he was pinned by a rock up against a piece of machinery. There were only 2 deaths in the entire construction process. One was this fellow, and the other one suffered from inhaling sand and dynamite in the tunnel. As you drive the switchbacks today, you'll get great views of the East Temple and the Great Arch. And you can pull off to the side and take some incredible photos. The next phase is the tunnel. The tunnel is 1.1 miles long, and they did not just enter the tunnel from one end and dynamite it all the way through to the other end. What they actually did was they went into the face of the mountain directly, and they had 6 entry points along the face of the mountain. They call these entry points galleries. One of the reasons they did this was because they were going to need better ventilation in the tunnel as they were blowing things up, and ventilation for the cars as they're driving through the tunnel. You can't have a big tunnel like that with no ventilation, with a bunch of cars and gasoline driving through there. So they went into the side of the mountain and they called these entries galleries. Then they started connecting a tunnel between the galleries that was about 8 feet wide is all. They called it a pilot tunnel. Remarkably, the tunnel was built concurrently with the switchbacks. They did them at the same time. They didn't build the switchbacks first and then start working on the tunnel. They were working on them at the same time. So without a road getting up to where the tunnel is, they constructed a tram to move people and machinery up to where the tunnel was. Then they constructed a little trail called the Pioneer Trail along the face of the mountain, and then they constructed scaffolding so that people could climb up, drill holes into the rock, put their dynamite in there, and blow the smithereens out of it. Then they had to expand the tunnel from the initial 8-foot pilot tunnel to the size that it is today, which is 16 feet high and 22 feet wide. Eventually, they had their tunnel complete. And as you drove through it, there were 6 galleries. You could look out those galleries and see the red rock formations outside. In fact, you could even stop at those galleries and just enjoy the view. Today, for various reasons, all the galleries have closed but 2, and you certainly cannot stop when you're in the tunnel. There's too much traffic nowadays to allow people to stop at those galleries and enjoy the view. You have to keep driving. It really is kind of a narrow, insane little road. Like, you gotta be on your A game driving through that tunnel. And if you're driving in an RV, you need a permit to enter the tunnel. You have to pay for a permit that is good for 1 week and it's good for 2 directions. And the reason why you have to do that is because it's only 16 feet tall in the middle. So what they have to do is stop traffic on both ends and allow that one RV to drive through on the middle of the road to get through that tunnel. Okay, once you exit the tunnel, you cross a bridge. So they had to build that bridge, of course, to get across Pine Creek. And then you lead into one of the most scenic red rock experiences you'll ever have. It's very common to see bighorn sheep along this road, so keep an eye out if you're visiting. I'm gonna be quiet for a moment here and let you enjoy the ride. They had to build one more tunnel called the Short Tunnel. getting any value or enjoyment out of this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd give it a like. And again, if you're interested, please subscribe to our channel. When you get to the end of the road, you're going to see Checkerboard Mesa, a really interesting formation with crisscrosses on the face of it. Okay, so that was the third phase, which is to go from the tunnel to the east entrance of Zion National Park. But there was a fourth phase, which was to go from Zion National Park, east entrance, to Mount Carmel Junction. Again, there was no road at all over here, so they had to connect the national park to the state highway over on the east side. Our last stop is Mount Carmel Junction. At Mount Carmel Junction, you'll see a Thunderbird restaurant and Best Western that you could stay at and eat. Interesting little sign here, it says homemade pies. There's a kind of a story behind that, is that the restaurant owner couldn't afford another letter for, he wanted to spell homemade as in H-O-M-E, but couldn't afford the other letters, so he just put homemade pies. Kind of a funny, quirky little story there. You can also see the Maynord Dixon Museum and Art Gallery. Maynord Dixon was a well-known Western artist who was a little bit more modern. A lot of the old Western artists kind of painted these old romanticized pictures of the West. Maynord Dixon modernized those a little bit. Very well-known artist whose museum is there today that you can check out. Also nearby is something in Kanab called the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary. This is a place where they've rescued animals, and they have a huge complex with all these animals. You can adopt them if you go by there. And then finally, you can visit the Belly of the Dragon, which is a quirky little tunnel that goes underneath the highway. It only takes a minute or two to walk through the tunnel, but really kind of an interesting spot to stop at that's right by Mount Carmel Junction. So there you have it, the grand tour of the Zion Mount Carmel Highway, an engineering marvel, a scenic wonder. Thank you for joining me. I would like to hear your thoughts on the drive. Also, I would like to know, what is your favorite scenic drive?